Welcome to FenCon 26. Thanks for joining us today. My name's Terry Adamson. I'm the Technical Director with Fenestration Canada. Really happy to be here. I was here in December. I have to admit, I really like being here a lot more than in December. It was shocking, to say the least, when I got off the plane. And whoever put together that light show last night, from a West Coast boy that never sees lightning, that was really cool. I sat on the patio for like an hour watching a lightning show. It was really great. So thanks for being here again. Thanks to Lane, our op manager, puts all this stuff together. We really rely on her to keep us wrangled in. And Steph, wherever Steph's at, our executive director. Jeff's outside at the table, Jeff Makamoto. Adrian Edge, our codes regulatory director. Lee out at the registration table, and Mario, our audio visual. So just don't hesitate to grab any of us if you have a question, if you want to talk about something or share something with us, by all means just grab us anytime. Like to intro, where is he? I saw Jen Liu from Silex. Jen is the co-chair of the Manitoba chapter. And is Sean here? I haven't seen Sean yet. Sean Kapusta with High Tech Glazing also co-chairs the chapter, so I saw him last night, so I assume he's on his way. Restrooms, if anybody needs them, out the door, all the way down to the far end. Please turn your phones down. Nothing worse than doing a presentation and phone rings. Coffee and drinks, etc., right outside the doors there. We are recording all of our sessions, as we always do. So if you have questions for our speakers, please raise your hand, and either Adrian or myself will come with a microphone to you so that we make sure we get the question recorded so that it's clear to everybody that what the question is and what the answers are. So today we're going to hear from Adrian. He's going to be talking about some key industry developments that are happening and things that we're doing, as well as an update on the float glass conversation in Canada. So we'll hear from him shortly. Daryl Paul with BTR Board, condensation at the windowsill, looking at cold climate installations when you have open rough openings. Shiva Zargar with Build Neutral. She's going to be talking about the ABCs of EPDs, LCAs, PCRs, and LCIs. So that'll be a lot of fun. No, it's great. She actually did a session for us at the CGC a couple of weeks ago. Really on top of her game when it comes to carbon in the products and in the industry and putting together EPDs, PCRs, all of that. So it'd be a really great conversation from her. And then Jason Waddell from Sturts is going to be here talking about automation and smart factory floors. So we had at the CGC, one of our exhibitors asked us if we would allow them, all of our exhibitors, who we really obviously appreciate for being here today, to tell us kind of a little bit about themselves, about a minute or so. So we're going to do that as we move through the day. So if you could, please. So we're going to do that right now. But I do also want to recognize our sponsors. Everything that we do relies heavily on our sponsors, and we really appreciate all of their support. Omni Fiberglass, Silex Fiberglass Windows, JSA Machinery, Pref ERP, Screenco, Opera Software, Eugenie, Layton, WNDC, Servitec, Paradigm, Inline Fiberglass, FSDC, which is folding sliding doors, Bilco, Botero, AdFast, and Fen Review. So we really appreciate our sponsors, and by all means, please recognize them and let them know that you appreciate them also. So go ahead, Adrian.
Hey, good morning, everyone, local Winnipeggers, as I am one of them. I'm Jeff Ward with Master Grain. I don't know if you're aware or not, but the best fiberglass doors in the world are designed and manufactured in Canada. That's quite a bold statement. So I only get a minute, so please come and visit me. I'd love to talk with you. Today we're here serving all of our distributors across Western Canada, so appreciate meeting everyone.
Oh, you're right. Good day. This is Tobin and Rob here with Efficiency Manitoba. So we provide incentives for putting more energy efficient windows in, and we're trying to help you pick the better window and help you with that extra cost of doing something over the baseline. So we want you to do better, and we're here all day. If any questions on our programs, commercial, residential, you name it, come track us down.
We will
lost
come back to
AGM.
AGM.
We'll get them later, yeah.
Yeah.
Good morning. I'm Steve Rogers. I'm with Bilco Manufacturing. We manufacture, our customers are the fabricators, so we do insulating glass lines, CNC glass cutting lines, washers, laminating, vertical and horizontal, and any fabricators, please stop over. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Folding doors, we'll come back to.
Hi, I'm Grant Mason with Botero. We manufacture machinery to actually fabricate the glass, from simple glass cutters to a way to stock the glass and have it actually move through the plant. We actually come up with full solutions, so it's almost actually fully robotic, from the raw material to the finished goods. Thank you.
Great, Petro team.
Hey, my name is Nico, and that's Andrew. We are from Fentro. We are hardware and window and door suppliers. We do have different application here, for sliding doors to handles, TD, smart locks for every application. So yeah, if you have questions, stop by.
All right, last but not least.
Hey everyone, Kevin, Dave, and Rakesh from Sterling Hardware. We carry a full range of glazing hardware for frameless showers, railings, all-glass doors and partitions, spider canopies, and then consumables as well. Branches in BC and Alberta right now, but we're shipping nationwide and looking at establishing branches in Winnipeg and Toronto, specializing in service, consultation, and helping you get the job done. Happy to help you with any of your hardware needs.
Excellent. Thanks very much, guys. Appreciate you being here. Okay, Adrian is going to do our first session. Yep, that's good. We'll stop there. Adrian is our codes. Oh, sorry, I didn't know what you were doing. Lost you there for a sec. Codes Regulatory Director. He's been so active on the whole tariff side of things and dealing with several government agencies and working on those challenges for our industry. So I see you have a guest. Go ahead. Microphone. I'll get out of your way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, nothing like the president. All right, so there's probably some background that's necessary in order to kind of get to the place where I introduce our member of parliament that decided to come join us, but you'll get a little bit more of that story here in just a bit. So let me pass it off to MP Jeanette. How would I? Okay.
Yeah. So we're wanting to make my presentation. I give my speech now, or okay, we're going with the flow. Well, good morning, everybody. Am I able to put this up here?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Here,
Wunderbar.
I'll hold it for you.
All right. Bonjour. Good morning, everyone. I am Ginette Lavac. I'm newly elected. I was made member of parliament almost a year ago. I guess next week will be a full year since I was first elected to the government of Canada. Really happy to be back home here in Winnipeg and to be with you today. It's really my honor to be here on behalf of Minister Joly, who's Minister of Industry and Minister responsible for Canada Economic Development of Quebec regions. So for those of you visiting Winnipeg, if you've experienced last night's thunder, welcome to spring in the prairies. It was a little bit of a light show. It was kind of quite nice, actually. I hope it didn't keep you up. It didn't keep me up. I was dead to the world very quickly. So in any case, I see that we have the land acknowledgement here on the screen, and it's always important to recognize that. I like to say a couple words in French, and so at the end of the day, it's important for me to tell you that on veut rendre hommage au premier peuple qui, depuis d'innombrables générations, partage et protège ses terres et ses eaux pour nous tous, et puis qu'on veut s'engager à aller de l'avant dans un esprit de réconciliation et de respect. Alors, turning the page. So, I mean, we've made mention of it, and I'm curious to hear your presentations and the words that you'll be saying later on about tariffs. These are really uncertain times, both globally and here at home, and it's really grounding, I think, to remember where we come from, but also what connects us. So our government, led by Prime Minister Mark Carney, has committed to building a strong Canada for everyone, with a focus on supporting Canadian industries and workers through the challenges of this trade war. So, dans des moments comme ceux-ci, il est bon de se rappeler d'où nous sommes, où nous sommes, et aussi où est-ce qu'on s'en va. So we've made it clear in Budget 2025 that our priorities are to build housing and infrastructure that will serve communities and strengthen them across the country, to develop our domestic industries and to sustain reliable supply chains so that Canadian businesses are on a solid footing and can look forward to ongoing growth. This is more important than ever as we watch energy prices rise. So beginning in July of 2026, we're helping Canadians face these challenges by introducing the groceries and essentials benefit that many Canadians will receive, just to really be on the ground with Canadians and helping support everyone at every level as much as we can. And we really, really are focused on all industries, all sectors. So for small and medium-sized enterprises, we've brought in the Regional Tariff Response Initiative that really protects Canadian businesses and workers from the impacts of these tariffs. And that's delivered through Prairies Can here in the Prairie region. Minister Olszewski's office is responsible for that. Their team do a great job, and so if you're eligible for that, you can always be in touch with the teams at Prairies Can, and they'll help you through that. So across the country, our Strategic Response Fund will help maintain and build Canadian industrial capacity by offsetting new market access costs and helping firms grow and find new markets. We're investing in workforce alliances to help workers develop their skills and bring them together with employers and unions in a changing labor market. We're looking at procurement processes and how small and medium-sized businesses can supply federal needs. So there's tons of work being done. We've developed the Buy Canadian policy as well that you might have heard of to help build our domestic industries and suppliers, because this is how we create skilled, high-paying jobs here in Canada. We have to support the development of those skills. Alors, sorry. Un momento. Les Canadiens ont besoin d'un endroit où vivre, où se sentir chez eux. We want people to feel they've got a place to call home, they feel secure. And the way to do that is through building quality homes, but those homes need doors, they need windows, they need your industry, they need your supplies. So Build Canada Homes counts on companies like yours to supply builders and developers with what they need to provide Canadians with those really affordable, beautiful homes that they can feel secure in. We need Canadian steel and lumber, we need other materials and innovative ways to create all of this. So thank you for the work that you're doing to make this possible. I'm really, really proud to be part of a government that stands behind Canadians, stands with Canadians, and is looking for every opportunity to develop together the programs, the systems we need to really advance and make things stronger for everyone, better for everyone. Alors, merci beaucoup. I wish you a wonderful day today here. I know you'll have great presentations, and I look forward to hearing some of them myself. So, merci.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. So, I guess first, because we didn't get to chat a little bit beforehand, are you comfortable taking some questions at the end? So if you would like, you can either come sit up here with us or welcome to sit in the crowd, whatever you're most comfortable with.
Sit in the crowd, bring me up whenever you need.
Okay, sounds good. Okie dokie. So let's make sure that I'm actually good. All right, so we're going to start with the land acknowledgement here. So we acknowledge that we're gathered on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional lands, and please forgive me, I'm still kind of learning how to enunciate some of these names, but Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, Dene people, and the homeland of Métis Nation. So, you know, as Terry said, we're really grateful to be here in Winnipeg with you guys and do our presentations. So today I'm going to give you a bit of a full painting of some of the projects that are going on in the background with an emphasis on float glass. So we're going to start off by going through some National Building Code changes. For those that don't know, the National Building Code 2025 was released in January, so we'll go through some of that and what you guys should be expecting. We'll go through some of the regulatory and industry changes. I'll spend a little bit of time on tariffs and what's been going on in the background and what you guys could be using as far as resources. We'll go through some industry improvement projects that Terry and I have been actively working on in the background, as well as a handful of our members. And then there's a couple strategic initiatives that line up with those improvement projects, and then kind of forward-facing to what we could be looking at as an industry in the future. And then last, we'll get into float glass. So Glenn from CPS is here with us. Glenn and I and the government of Manitoba have been spending a lot of time on this topic, as well as there's a glass committee that is Fenestration Canada as the association, Fenestra Buying Group, and a few other members. So yeah, we'll have a good conversation about that, and I'm personally very excited about that subject, that it's one of those places where we've had gaps in the industry for 16 years specifically. All right, so on the national code side, I kind of want to first explain how this system works. So every 5 years, the National Building Code goes through its process. We get a release in January, and then the provinces, because they have a Harmonization Act, have 18 months to implement. That means every province by June of next year, the changes that have been added that are relevant, that are not policy objective changes that those provinces want to make, will be implemented by June. So yeah, but it's important to note that the provinces do not have to make a clean adoption of the NBC to the provinces. That very intentionally in that system, they created a relief valve so the provinces can push information up to the National Building Code so that if there's things that regionally don't make sense, they still have that flexibility. That being said, I'm very happy to hear from the various building code officials that Terry and I talk to on nearly a quarterly basis on how that implementation's looking. There's an enormous amount of work that has gone into removing a lot of what I'll call the artifacts of previous code information, and they are trying to harmonize back to kind of that central national building code with small exceptions. So one of the big ones for us that we're going to have to keep an eye out for is NAFS 22. So many of our manufacturers at this point, you should be at NAFS 17, so all your products should be tested to that point. When the National Building Code or when the provincial building codes then adapt the update, I'm very much expecting them to add NAFS 22 as the expectation. So there is a lot of changes to 17 and 22. There is an equivalency document that WDMA and FGIA put out. You know, this document, as well as any others that I mentioned during this presentation, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to send it your way. But it does a really good job of outlining the, call it, critical differences in that. When you do go through the process of doing testing updates for NAFS 22, it's worth looking to see if NAFS 26 is also released. So we're expecting, because there was a rushed process on NAFS 26, that we should have that released in the summer. That means if you go to your labs, instead of spending the $10,000 per test for NAFS 22 and only getting that 5-year cycle, you can test for 17, 22, and 26 and have a very small a difference of cost, and you can do it all at once. So you're essentially covered for 10 years instead of 5. So definitely talk to your labs and keep an eye out for those dates as they come through, and we'll be sending updates through Fenestration Canada's portal as well. Another change that has happened, and this one's kind of interesting because as we get higher, call it better thermal envelopes around our buildings, a lot of the solar heat gain problems that we've been seeing in the industry has grown. So one of the big changes that happened in the National Building Code on our side is that there's going to be what's called solar heat gain coefficient caps. So it will actually cap the amount of, call it, solar heat gain that your window is you're allowed to sell into a project. What that really means for most of the provinces outside of, say, BC, is that like the ER rating, the energy rating, that'll be something that's going to become increasingly irrelevant to the conversation. You won't be able to use that as a way to kind of get that higher ER number. And even within like the Energy Star program and the National Building Code, they're removing the references to ER entirely. So it will be a U-value type of value you need to meet. So one of the conflicts I'm kind of expecting is the solar heat gain coefficient of visible light transmittance. We all kind of know that in the window world, we've got 13 different values. At any point, you got to kind of play the Rubik's Cube game of lining up the different metrics. This is going to be one of those where those metrics are going to get weird, so just keep an eye out for it as we start to get into that solar heat gain maximum cap. Another one, which is, kind of, for our industry, it's not going to be that much of a difference, except for it might mean that there's more permitting. There's a whole new part that has been added to the code called alterations to existing buildings. So this is going to start capturing any of our renovation work that is being done in the market. For the National Building Code side of this change, it's fairly limited. You need to make sure the thermal transmittance of the glass that is being replaced is better than what currently exists. So if you've got a no low-E coating, single piece of glass, literally anything else is going to be better. So that one's fairly easy. And then when you replace a window, it needs to be to the code of the day. So whatever your existing codes are is what you're going to need to replace your entire unit with. I currently sit as a member for the alterations to existing buildings on the 2030 code cycle. That'll get a little harder. And there's a lot of conversation around that. Right now, it's a lot of just provincial lining up. So we're taking all the different provincial codes related to the existing buildings, and we're trying to line up where it makes sense. So in our industry, one of the places where we're going to have to spend the most amount of time is being focused on like egress. So specifically how big the doors and windows are, and making sure that we're kind of managing that the best we can. So we're involved in that conversation. I'll continue to keep an eye out for it and give you guys updates as relevant. Another one that actually Daryl Paul is here. I can't say thank you enough for the amount of work that you guys did and the whole committee did on this precipitation protection around the National Building Code. So kind of succinctly, what it does is it closes a gap. That in the National Building Code, it wasn't explicit that you need to drain through the sill. That's now explicit. And so that really means it pushes the rest of the country into what we consider kind of a rain screen type of application. That is a great change in my honest and at this point educated opinion about it. That face seal was probably a way to create less durable installation practices, though it's complicated. All the same, this was great work, and there's some good models on kind of how that sill is supposed to look, and so that's now in the building code. So that's now made that explicit. So for the future 2030 code, one of the big things that we're kind of working on in the background at Fenestration Canada is establishing a more standard method of getting our code change request in. So one of the big pieces that we did recently, for anybody in this room that deals with guard load language, I think we'll all collectively agree 9881 and the guard load language as a whole is really frustrating. It's a lot of intertangled fall protection versus egress versus structural requirements. So we've actually put in a CCR that untangles some of that and separates us as the window and door industry, say, from the glass railing industry. That 9881 kind of combines all of that together, and so we created what's called a 9888. So it's a new section that hopefully will help untangle some of that conversation. Anybody interested in kind of seeing what that language looks like or interested to participate in the future on some of these CCRs, reach out. I'm always happy to include more people in that group and get more feedback. Another one, I'm gonna leave this here, and I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it today because you're gonna hear from me in the future about this. We have some issues with NAFs. NAFs as a standard has some really frustrating bits. Specifically, like I said, I'm going to kind of leave this alone for a different conversation. It's one of those standards that we know as an industry is not being followed. It 100% across the board, I cannot find a manufacturer that 100% follows the standard as is, but it is a code requirement. So it is a legal requirement in our industry, but the standard is not, we cannot follow it without going bankrupt. So there's further conversations about this, and anybody interested to kind of talk more about this particular one, I'll talk about 2 committees that have been set up, but we have a future NAFs committee that we're kind of looking at the language and figuring out how we adapt to that. But for now, we probably need to make some adaptations to the building code, or at least flag it for the building code that it is a serious risk. So, update requirements. Anybody that's been kind of watching me in the background, last year I spent some time on PFAS. That's still a thing. So anybody that had to report about PFAS last year, the next 2 years you're going to have to report as well. There is an industry roundtable that has been convened that we participate in. A lot of it's just kind of looking at what's reasonable future tense. It's kind of a complicated subject, to be honest, for us, that even at our HPD type of side, where you get really fine granular information, frankly, PFAS doesn't show up in that level of granular information. So there's some discussions about how we manage that better, but again, this will be one of those that I'll continue to provide you guys updates as we go. Next is the Federal Plastics Registry. So we actually had some pretty aggressive requirements that were going to be coming up, but that has been put on pause for now. That I think there's been an acknowledgement from NRCan about this particular subject that it's a difficult one to, or NRCan and Environment Canada, it's been one that they're not, it's probably too much for our current moment. There's a lot of change going on. So I think as an industry, really appreciate that this has been kind of put on hold for now. All right, CUSMA renegotiations. So myself and my counterpart down in the US with WDMA, we talk every other week about this particular topic that we've been talking with our counterparts that deal with the negotiators on both sides of the fence. I will say it is unlikely, based off of what we both hear, that the July 1 deadline is met. Just full stop. It's unlikely we are going to come to a, call it, renegotiated contract. But that's not actually the problem. There's really very little, call it, negative outcome to that for Canada at the moment. That we can maintain a neutral agreement on the contract for up to 16 years. We can actually have disagreements for the contract up to 10 years. Or any party, Mexico, Canada, or the US, can withdraw from the contract, but it's not the trade agreement. It's not immediate. Like, that takes another 5 years of going through that process in order to get there. But for our industry, I bring this up because it means nothing's really going to change for us at the moment. That anything that is currently exempted by the CUSMA agreement will kind of stay in place. If there's updates to it after July 1st, I obviously will be providing that, but I've heard this conversation in the background, like what happens when the trade agreement stops? And it's like, not much. We have put our comments in as Fenestration Canada to the national government on this point. Anybody interested to hear what we said about it and what chapters we were recommending that actually get modified? Please reach out, happy to share that document, and we'll continue to monitor this one. Buy Canadian. So this was on the beginning of the conversation with our friend here from the federal government. We agree. The Buy Canadian policy is excellent. It should absolutely help our industry. The problem is that we don't manufacture the vast majority of the things that we actually use to assemble our products. So there's kind of this weird gap that's created right now where we can't support an industry that doesn't make the things. So we're working on that. Like, I think there is a lot of acknowledgement that in Canada we're going to have to start building more of our secondary supply. But for now, there's probably some work to do on the policies around Buy Canadian so that it not only incentivizes necessarily the supply side of the industry, but supports the manufacturer side of the industry. And that's just not happening yet. There is good conversation in the background about that. One of the big ones that we're doing, and this will kind of lead into our whole float glass conversation, is in the pre-budget consultation this year, we have submitted for really two main items. It's supporting the de-risking of a float glass plant here in Canada and establishing float glass as a strategic material. So kind of looking at it through the same lens as, say, steel or lumber or something similar. That, I kind of don't want to steal the steam from that conversation yet, so I'm going to leave it for a moment. So, many of you probably know me mostly through tariff work, and I cannot say thank you enough to all the members and the associations and the Department of Finance for all making the steel derivative surtax item a lot less painful than it had to be. That your collective voice played a huge role in getting our voice to the right point at the right time. So, a little bit of summary first. HS 392520 is plastic, builder-grade plastics. That is, for us, completed UPVC and fiberglass windows and doors. This was kind of contentious. I'll be honest, at the industry side, representing you guys as a full membership, There's pushback on, we kind of wanted tariffs on UPVC windows because there's plenty of manufacturers that do UPVC windows, and there's a couple manufacturers of fiberglass doors and windows. But alternatively, we also have dealers, and we have fiberglass manufacturers, or we have those that import a fair bit of their fiberglass. So ultimately, this wound up becoming a little bit of a policy hygiene exercise. And to be clear, this particular item went to our advocacy committee. So we've got a group of members here at Fenestration Canada that all put their voice in, and then it went to the board, and the board approved where this went. But it was a difficult one. But we know in the industry there is essentially no steel in fiberglass or UPVC products. So as a steel derivative surtax with the intent to capture the steel in the industry, it wasn't an appropriate HS code. And so we put this in very much as a policy hygiene kind of exercise. The other one, which was a lot cleaner, is 8302-4190. There is very little window and door hardware that is made in Canada. Roughly 5% of the entire supply market is made in Canada. So this one was very clean. We just don't have the supplies. So having a tax on this particular item wasn't reasonable. So I'm very happy to say at this point, the OIC for the Order in Council for these two HS codes were applied. So there is a remission process, correction, and refund process for these two HS codes. To kind of give a little bit on what that looks like in the background, we consulted with the Department of Finance because we had already talked with them a little bit last year regarding a couple counter tariff items. And so they walked us through the remission process. We got to talk to a couple of people in the federal government that helped us just make sure we were lined up correctly. We sent that remission in with CHBA, Fenestra, AVFQ, Consumer Products, and about 50 or so members' letters. So again, can't say thank you enough. The remission, the way that it works, it's not actually removed. So neither one of those HS codes are removed. If you have hardware that you are bringing in, you'll have to use the OIC code in the CARM portal in order to have it exempted. There is a reason code, RH or R500CO2 for corrections. So if you have not paid for that tariff that has, or the surtax that has come in, you can use the reason code and actually correct it so you no longer are responsible for that. And then there is a refund process. So I'll leave it to say, if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I spend a lot of time fielding questions about tariffs specifically. And I think I cannot again thank the Department of Finance quite enough. That for those that understand how the process goes in the background, there's a lot that happens on the government side when you actually get one of these OICs. You've got a discovery team that goes through and has to evaluate whether or not it's reasonable. You've got an implementation team that actually writes up some of the documentation that then gets handed to Minister Champagne, and then he has to sign off on it. Like, that is the process for how the tariffs have to work in the background. And it took 2 weeks from when we put the remission in to when it was actually exempted. That's insane. We were told 7 months. So again, the cooperation with all stakeholders involved was awesome. All right, so one of the conversations I'm having a lot right now is the Section 232 tariffs from the US and how that's impacting us. Unfortunately, the US is brutal. When it comes to aluminum and steel products, it's 50%. Like, if the material itself, 95% of it is not being extruded in the US, it's 50%, and there's nothing we can do about it. Like, I am the kind of guy that likes to find all the loopholes and find ways through these things, but there is none. There is no duty drawbacks. There is no using our trade agreements. There is nothing. They have worked really hard to make these products essentially untouchable. And it's brutal on both sides. Like, talking to my counterpart about this, they don't make enough aluminum and steel doors to supply their markets. So for them, they're just increasing cost on their people. So anybody that is shipping aluminum and steel windows and doors down, I'm sorry. There's just no workaround on this now. And worse is that 50% is likely to get worse over the next couple of years. That our understanding is the point of what they're doing with the 232 is to ratchet it slowly over the next few years. So Yeah, in our industry, that's just going to be hard. Window hardware and fittings are a derivative steel and aluminum product. That only gets 25%, but again, expect that it's going to get ratcheted up as we go along. All right, so NRC and NRCan, we spend a lot of time with both of those parties. They're under the ISET umbrella. So two programs that we're engaged in right now is Federal Label program has been put on hold. And the Energy Star program is now up and running again. So we've got a group called the EEFSC, the Energy Efficiency Fenestration Stakeholder Council. I really don't like acronyms. So the Federal Label program and Energy Star program, NRCan has been fairly clear with us that if we want to see the Federal Label program come back, which is really like a enforcement lever that exists at the federal side, which we don't currently have, that each province has their safety acts, which give the building code power, and that gives our standards power for us to actually, have a regulated product. That doesn't exist at the federal side. There is no supports necessarily for imported products coming in. There's no way to say, hey, CBSA, start enforcing this particular thing. That doesn't exist. So we have the opportunity as an association to give more input to that Federal Label program and Energy Star. Energy Star is interesting because as we move towards kind of this net zero concept that we're supposed to be at 2030, Energy Star doesn't make a lot of sense for our industry because Energy Star is supposed to provide kind of this, aspirational energy target. If we're at net zero, there's not a lot of aspirational targets to get to. We could talk about like positive energy out of buildings, but that's not actually where we're heading. So there is kind of this openness to have a conversation about Energy Star and the Federal Label program, specifically on the Energy Star label because technically we license that from the EPA. So that's a US program that we've kind of just adopted. So anybody that is interested in potentially going down that rabbit hole with me, reach out. All right, so industry improvement projects. One of them that we've been involved in is called Winfinity. So it's a UPVC recycling program. It's been kind of an interesting program to watch through. Like I would say recycling UPVC products in Canada is almost untenable. It is a really challenging thing to do on a couple different fronts, but that team has effectively launched their pilot. Last year, we went ahead and had a handful of windows pulled out of buildings. They went through the full process of breaking down the UPVC, repelletizing, and then creating new windows out of the recycled material and then getting it into a building. It was a cool project. We've got 2 recycling points in Toronto that's actually getting sent to. The call it struggle with it at this point is that it's not financially viable. Like the truth is without more glass that is being pulled from those products, like cullet, because that's actually what's valuable from it, the recyclers don't like it. So I'm hoping that at scale, that starts to look better, but that's probably the only real roadblock that I see. Otherwise, the program's fairly effective. So life cycle inventory. I'm not going to touch on this too much because you guys are going to hear from Shiva later, and I really don't want to take steam out of her boat. But we are working with NRC as Fenestration Canada to work through a life cycle inventory of our world. So life cycle inventory is our way of kind of capturing the embodied carbon related to our products. Specifically, this project touches on A1 through A3. That's cradle to gate for products. Really, that just means that from your supply to before you ship it out to site, that's what we're capturing. The problem that we currently have when we look at like life cycle analysis and EPDs is that a lot of the data that's in the background is based off of US and European data. So like, good example, whenever you're doing an LCA, a lot of the transport data actually is from Europe. Anybody that's spent a little time in Europe will tell you that Canada and Europe do not think the same way about transportation. So our carbon costs related to it are not equivalent. So a lot of the life cycle inventory work is about unpacking those black boxes and making sure that we as an industry can educate you guys on what we see and give you the confidence that when you do the LCAs, it will be representative of our market and what you actually put through. So, like I said earlier, we've got 2 groups that we've kind of stood up since I took this role about 2 years ago. We've got our advocacy committee that we get this central voice for you guys to speak into some of these big topics. We have a policy agenda that has been approved. We're working through priorities right now and the actions related to those priorities. So anybody that's interested in getting to some of these projects and kind of getting a voice into what matters to you, I recommend you come and join us. And then the Future NAFs group. As I mentioned earlier, obviously, I've got some issues with NAFs. And if we want it to work for the Canadian market, we're going to need to make some inputs. So I think one of the things to kind of give it in context is that NAFs is managed by the Joint Document Management Group. That is CSA, FGIA, and WDMA. So there's kind of 2 US parts and a Canadian part that give voice to this particular standard. Anybody that knows the fenestration market in Canada and then also knows the fenestration market in the US, we're 2 different beasts. We have roughly 650 to 800 manufacturers. They have closer to like 15 that you can kind of point to. Those are 2 very different markets, and the standards then kind of are offset. So we've got some work to do to figure out how we kind of bridge gap this critical standard into our market. All right, so this is going to lead into the float glass conversation. So I'm going to quickly go through these last 2 slides. With NRC, we've got a durability program we're taking a look at. So we're looking at kind of a 5-phase approach to creating the metrics necessary for us to define the durability for our products. You know, when I think about the LCI project, one of the big issues with an A1 through A3 type of item is that you're not focused on what makes the products last. And arguably, that is the most important part of the whole embodied carbon conversation as a whole. If the products don't last, what's the point of understanding what the carbon is A1 through A3? So the durability project is going to start looking at how we define metrics in our industry so that we can point to a product and say, you know, I can measure it and I know how long this is going to last. So that's kind of what that is in the background. Terry and I have talked a lot about this particular subject, and we brought it up to a couple of our conferences. We believe that a label confidence program, one that gives you guys the ability to send in your test reports and for us to create a bit of a summary on, you know, what products you're tested to so that we can have a verified label in the market, is absolutely critical. It is one of the things that, frankly, we have a gap in our Canadian market, is we don't do third-party compliance around a whole bunch of topics. This is one of them. So we're looking into that right now. We'll continue to kind of progress through and give you guys updates as this happens. But that leads me into kind of my favorite topic of the day, and I'm going to invite Glenn
Adrian?
from CPS. Yeah.
Do you want to do some questions first before you do that?
Sure. How are we doing on time?
That's a good question. I don't have a clock, but
It is 10:53? 10:53. Yeah, we're doing okay. I've got it.
that was a lot of info from Adrian. Questions on any of that before we get into the float glass conversation?
That's fair. It was very clear. No, it's a lot. Please don't hesitate to pull me aside afterwards if you have any questions about it. I realize it is a lot. I'm more than happy to provide kind of typically we don't provide PDFs of our information, but I think this is one of those where there's enough topics. If you guys need it kind of broken down, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, and you know, and again, there's a lot of things going on, and you know, we can't stress enough that there's no point in Adrian and I sitting at our desks and doing this work without your input. So, you know, please get involved in any of these that are of interest. You can reach out to myself or Adrian, and we'll get you into the groups that are relevant and get your input. So, okay, go ahead.
So I'm going to invite Glenn from CPS to come join me. Glenn, I know we didn't rehearse this before, but I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself first before I just throw you into the fray.
So I'm Glenn LaRue. I'm the president and CEO of a company called Canadian Premium Sand. It's a small, publicly traded company. The core of the company is a very large deposit of, very high-grade silica sand that's 160 kilometers north of where we're sitting right now, up on the eastern shore of Lake Winnipeg. We originally were going to develop that sand deposit, and may still do, depending on how things unfold here, but the original thing was to develop that and use it as fracture proppant in Western Canada. So 1 million tons a year, get it down to where there's a rail, transload, put it on trains, get it out to places like Grand Prairie, Fort St. John, where the big fracking is taking place, and compete with the Wisconsin supply that is currently about 6 million tons a year. 2 million tons produced. So that's enough about the frac sand. Sometime around COVID, when the whole world changed, we started to look at that market, and the market wasn't, for frac sand, really wasn't very attractive. It was getting worse by the minute. And we realized that we had a very good sand deposit. So we had done enough lab work. We knew we could make glass with it, but we did more lab work and more focused work and got labs in Europe involved, Germany in particular, and realized or learned that this silica sand deposit is quite rare. There's a few in the States, there's a few other places in the world, but it's got a very low iron content. That got us on the path to pivoting to make glass, but at the time, the pivot was to make solar glass. Because the market, there isn't a single piece of this type of glass made in anywhere in North America. And you're going to hear why float glass is important on this. And so we saw this massive hockey stick type growth for solar glass in the US and a lot of rhetoric in the States about, well, we got to stop buying from China, et cetera, et cetera. So we developed an entire plan on that. We achieved an Environmental Act license to extract and process and sell the sand, and an environmental, more importantly for this audience, an Environmental Act license to develop a 800 ton a day pattern solar glass plant in Selkirk, Manitoba. We have the land parcel secured, there's rail, there's natural gas, the high power line is just a couple kilometers away. We were set to go. And then the US got weird, to say the least. And the whole solar glass market, we had 65% offtake agreements for that solar glass at one point, just a couple of years ago. Our favorite president, or somebody's favorite president, certainly not mine, got elected. The whole thing went to hell in a handbasket. So we took a step back, and we'd looked at float glass originally. That was the original plan. We took a step back and looked at the sand deposit, and at that point, I realized there wasn't a single piece of float glass made in this country. And let's just think about that for a second. So here's Canada.
Steal my steam, man.
We have, oh yeah, sorry.
It's okay, no, go ahead.
So we're sitting in this country, we have cheap, responsibly produced, now I'm a petroleum engineer, and I can tell you what goes on in there, and I worked around the world. We have very responsibly produced natural gas in this country, and it's cheap, it's discounted on a world basis. We have this fantastic 97% renewable hydroelectricity in the province of Manitoba. Manitoba is absolutely awash in silica sand. We're permitted and ready to go, others are looking at it. Why aren't we making glass in this country? Why are we sitting here buying, what is it, 80, 90%?
83%.
83% from the US and a little bit from Europe and a little bit from the Pacific Rim somewhere. This is nuts. This is everything that this current leadership in Canada is trying to resolve. And on that, because he made all the slides up, I'm going to turn it over to him.
Hey, it was great. It was a good warm up. Thank you, Glenn. And there's another mic, so feel free to you can come up and just join me. So I love, there's so many of these pieces I'm going to try to touch on, and Glenn, feel free to just jump right in and we can kind of make sure the information is as full as possible. I've been having a little bit of fun in the background trying to understand the history of glass in Canada. So late 1800s, early 1900s, the truth is that the U.S. had dealt with their industrial revolution in such a way that they had good scale. They had management of their plants. So at the time, we were creating rolled and plate glass. And essentially, we were buying all of it from the U.S. back then. So that really hasn't changed. It was only 1959 when the Pilkington brothers created what we now call the float glass plant, or the float glass process, or the Pilkington process. And 1969 and 1971 is the last time we built float lines in Canada. So the last of those float lines ended in 2008. That's 16 years ago in Owen Sound. So that is the end of Canada creating the float glass that serves a nearly Oh, actually, I was going to say it's a $2 billion market, but I'll get to that in a moment. The last time that we actually had an opportunity where we had a serious float glass interest was from a company called Jinyi. So in Ontario, back in the early 2020s, they had been, there was a trade delegation that had gone out from the Ontario government and brought Jinyi in. They were very interested. They worked with Guelph. They worked in Guelph, and then they worked in Stratford trying to get this started. Unfortunately, there was some environmentalist pushback that the community there was really concerned specifically about their aquifers and about pollution and, frankly, pulling too much water out of their aquifers and potentially sabotaging the farming community there. So it ended. It was kind of just the project was abandoned after 2022. There's an interesting book that was written by the group that actually pushed this initiative back, and I got the chance to talk to the lead on the environmentalist side, and I can hear from their perspective, but it's unfortunate because this was really as we get into this, you'll understand, like, it's a serious capital endeavor, and there's a lot that goes into having to set this up in such a way that it works. So unfortunately, it didn't happen, but all that being said, it needs to start, we need to start again. Like, we're at this place trade-wise that if we don't, it's gonna become a problem. Again, I hate to steal slide thunder, but we're the only country in the G20 that doesn't have a float glass plant. Like, that has to beg the question, why? Why are we the only country that does not have one? And the answer is we're really big. Like, honestly, transporting glass from point A to point B, whether it be Manitoba to Vancouver or Manitoba to Ontario, it's tricky. And there's kind of an internal logic within the float glass world that 400 miles is your max. Like, that's kind of a European and a US definition. I think we agree that it's not necessary.
One challenge I would say is, where are you getting your glass now? Is it 500 miles away?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
No.
nowhere close. So it's a bit of a false representation of the problem here.
It's an industry rule that we probably need to break for Canada's benefit.
Well, and you know whose rule it is? It's the float glass company's rule.
Yeah.
And they are ruling the market, so.
Be careful, we've got people here.
I don't care.
So, in my honest opinion, if we don't solve this today, this gap can't persist. Like, it's not gonna, not just like being optimistic that, like, hey, we're gonna get to this point, we're gonna, like, our current moment demands us solve it. This is a $2 billion market. Like, we've imported $2 billion worth of glass into this country. That there's obviously money there. And our supply chain increasing some of those pressures, yeah, obviously that's an issue. Like, one of the things that we talk about a little bit in the background is the potential repercussions if we didn't have, like, let's say tomorrow the US decides to stop shipping us glass. It's a short lead item, so it's about 2 weeks that we usually order our glass to when they show up. It'd be about 6 weeks and the entire construction market would essentially stop. There's something, like, terrifyingly profound about the idea. And I'm not trying to do hyperbole here. Buildings need the glass in order to get to dry in. You can't do drywall, you can't do any of your interiors. Like, it is an absolute stop. I remember back in 2020, I was working for a manufacturer, and we had allocations from our glass companies. So what was happening was the shipments that were coming in offshores that were supplying kind of the gap feed for the float glass companies had slowed down. And so they didn't have enough glass. And that meant that for the US shipping into Canada, there was allocations that were being provided to manufacturers. We had only so much glass we could build. We couldn't grow to the market size that we currently had because we had allocations on it. So we were creating window frames, putting them into multifamily buildings without glass, and then coming back a month later and putting glass into it. We can't do that. Like, that won't work in a construction market we're trying to build. So I firmly believe that markets of our size cannot remain structurally unserved. Like, it doesn't make sense. Eventually, we're going to find the right investors. We're going to find the right float companies. But, again, I feel like I've got my slides actually a little out of sync here. I really should have told you that it's, it's not going to last, but there is a series of things we're going to need to do in order to make it happen now versus 10 years from now. And 10 years from now is a very different picture in our market than solving this problem in the next couple of years. So one of the big issues that we have in the background is that when I look at prices for glass coming in from the US is about 60% more in cost than what I see glass coming from Asian and European markets. So that's complicated. You know, there is subsidizing that's going on, but I honestly, just looking at it from that scale, that is one of our biggest price pressures. And a lot of what I hear from members is they want an equal playing field. They would like for some of the import companies to be able to play at the same level. And you know, there's standards and regulations that are something that Terry and I work really hard in the background to try to manage. But this cost item is critical. I cannot think of another one that is as devastating to kind of the, call it competitiveness of our market. But the loss of control is also an issue. You know, we really don't innovate our products in Canada the way that is suitable for our market. Like this is an awful analogy, and I'm really sorry. But the Canadian market's kind of like a really nice Michelin star restaurant. You walk in and the tables are set nicely, the staff does exactly what you would expect them to do in a good Michelin star restaurant, and you get to the back and there's no kitchen. Nothing. There's no stove, there's no dishwasher. Like we really don't have a lot of the back house figured out. We've been getting takeout. So we don't have that control, and we really need to build it. And that kind of speaks to the system vulnerability of having to rely on 83% of our glass coming from the US. And for the US guys, I also see it's changing. In the last year, there's been a 7% decrease in their market share versus the rest of the world's market share in Canada. So that's shifting. The pricing is shifting, and the amount of glass we're getting from other countries is shifting. So we can compete on many of the reasons Glenn already brought up. Like Manitoba is amazing. 97% hydroelectric is unique worldwide. Like I don't know if you have some numbers on what that creates as far as price competitiveness in the market.
I think so. One thing I didn't speak to is when Biden put in the Inflation Reduction Act, our customers were asking us to manufacture the solar glass in the U.S. and to get some incentive advantage on that. So we did. We didn't do it, but we took a project right to feasibility. And in doing so, we looked at a number of locations and a number of places, North U.S., South U.S., different states. And categorically, we determined that not a single jurisdiction in the U.S. that we studied and looked at could compete within 20% of the input costs of doing it right here in Selkirk, Manitoba. And we also compared as one would do when you're delineating a market, we looked at what the alternative for this solar glass was for on the input costs. Largely, it's Chinese and Chinese-controlled companies that are providing this patterned solar glass. We're 40% because we don't have a Pacific Ocean to deal with. So this is the place. Manitoba is the province. Selkirk's the place to make this glass, and we can compete with anything coming from the U.S. on a factory gate basis. Yes, we're in the middle of the country. We're a long ways from Vancouver, we're a long ways from Halifax. Figured out ways to deal with that, but on a manufactured basis, there is no jurisdiction in the U.S. that compete with our input costs.
Yeah. Well, and really, I mean, Winnipeg historically, it's exactly who this area has been. They've been the transportation hub. Like, I feel like historically this absolutely lines up with one of the greatest gaps that we kind of heard in that market. So the next item was market proximity. So when it comes to Canadian demand, what we see right now is the 600 ton per day line. We need about 1.7 of them in Canada to just fill our own demand. Like, we have the need for a float glass plant today in order to do that. And we have access to the US right over the border. Like, in the same way they've set us up as an export market, we could just as easily become an exporter of glass. Like, I mean, of course, I would like for us to mostly feed our own, industry first, but we actually have access on both sides to a pretty reasonable market. But reasonable. Maybe that's the wrong word. So when it comes to the project itself, maybe I'll actually give more of that to you. When it comes to CapEx and OpEx, you're going to know that much better than I do.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why we're not making glass right now, because we're shovel ready. We're just shy of a mere 700 million in capital to pull this off. That's clearly a big bite. No pun intended. We're making glass, clear, Anyway, it is a big bite. And it takes a lot to pull financing like that together. We were in exactly the same position with solar glass just a couple of years ago. And as I mentioned, we went all the way out to, had 65% offtake agreements for 5 years at pricing that could support it, and everything was great. That's what it's going to take, folks. If we want to make glass in Canada, we have to come up with $700 million. And the only way to come up with $700 million is the industry has to step up with offtake agreements, firm offtake agreements for 5 years, or no one's going to look at this. The other thing that has to happen, because of $700 million, is we're going to need some help from levels of government. Both the province and the federal government are going to have to step up in some capacity. It might be creative capacity, it might be straight up grants to try to bridge this to make it attractive for someone like Saint-Gobain, who's not producing anything in North America, or a Chinese company, or one of the Japanese companies, or a U.S. company.
Guardian's in the back, so.
Oh, I can see them right there, yeah. But it's going to have to be attractive.
Yeah.
This stuff just it doesn't happen. It's not a charitable organization. It has to show an attractive rate of return. So
Yeah, and
if those elements can be brought to bear, honestly, we're sitting here shovel ready.
Yeah.
We're permitted actually for 1,200 tons a day of production out of that facility, and 1,200, we can support 1,200 tons a day easily with the permit we have on the sand supply.
Yeah, when it comes to government support, I think the first step really is, that I see, is a trade delegation. So really there's a little bit more cooperation on that side. As industry, we've been reaching out to Saint-Gobain, you guys reached out to Syzyjam, I've been talking to Euroglass, we talked to Guardian, we've talked to Cardinal, Genie is next on the list. With the exception of ACG, we've essentially touched all of the global float glass manufacturers. We've at least got the threads out there to pull in a conversation, but as industry, hopefully we can try to make it as attractive as we can, and I'll get kind of into expressions of interest from the industry side, committing to buying the float glass. But I would say that's kind of first. We need the proponent. That doesn't exist today. There is one company that has agreed that they might be interested in funding, so we'll continue discussions with them as appropriate. And then there's another that was offering technical support and low-E coating licensing. So we're starting that conversation, but a collaborative effort between industry and government is kind of what we're after right now. That I'll be just blunt. A lot of the float glass conversation really is about that portion, and then getting the industry to sign expressions of interest that at least commit to a certain amount % of glass we'd be willing to buy from a Canadian-made float glass plant. So, we've been working really closely with Leo and their team from the government of Manitoba, and we're so appreciative of that work and look forward to continuing that effort. The federal government side, I'm so grateful you guys are here. This is the first time we've gotten to interact, and I'm glad you can kind of hear the story, because it's one that I started last year in Ottawa kind of doing the roundtables on, and I'll come back and do another roundtable on. But there's getting the trade delegation, and then there is how do we set up that project for success? One of the things that I see is that the model essentially needs to get to the point where before the first 10 years is up, where about 10 years in, you wind up doing a rebuild of the float glass plant. The project needs to be able to fund itself to that point. And really, it needs to be more aggressive than that. It's playing with where the investors are comfortable and getting their money back. They're not going to play unless they do. So then industry, yeah, we're working as much as we can to make sure this happens now. And I just want to hint at what I see down the road. If we don't look at getting a float glass plant in the near future, what I think is going to happen, and I'm already seeing it, and I think many of our manufacturers feel it, the dealers are coming back. We've actually had kind of this interesting market over the last handful of years that people essentially were doing direct to customer, but we're starting to see some of the dealers pop back up, and I think that's going to continue because the price pressures essentially put the competitiveness of importing the windows and having completed products here and selling it into the market as really positive. Like that model works for them more and more as we go along, and I can imagine that we shrink our manufacturing base here in Canada if we don't figure out how to fill this gap. So in 10 years, that's what I see. If we can figure out the float glass plant in the next couple of years where we start moving in this direction, I think we get to maintain this small and medium-sized base, which is essential to the ecosystem of our fenestration system. That, I'm a big believer that if you wind up with a couple big sharks in the market, they only have each other to eat. They essentially have to eat each other in order to survive. If you have a full ecosystem, they reproduce and there's diversity, and you can kind of, this fish gets a little bigger and that fish eats that particular fish, but there's still a bunch of small fish that kind of feed the whole system.
Can I just
Yeah.
say something here? You mentioned 2 years. If we think 2 years, we're thinking like a bunch of Canadians.
Thank you.
We're
Yes.
we're ready to go. We're ready to go. We could have shovels in the ground within 6 months of securing financing, probably 4 months, because a 600-ton-a-day float plant is basically what's built everywhere around the world. We already have the design. We don't need 2 years, folks. We need everybody to believe that we can get this done and get it done.
Yeah.
And the sooner that comes together with federal government, provincial government, the industry, ideally, we bring in an industry partner, we can get going. But 2 years?
I actually mean 2 years.
Because the other thing, respectfully, Adrian, companies don't sit around forever.
Agreed.
So 2 years from now, we may not have any. These permits are expiring. Things are happening. We have to do this now if we want to do it, and if not, I would venture to say anybody else coming in looking for a greenfield opportunity to make a float glass plant is 4 years out. This isn't easy to get these permits in place and everything. So anyway, that's my passionate plea.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree. I think we're closer to the reality of a float glass plant in Canada that, like, when I look at the history here, that we've been in the last 30 years.
Yeah, it sounds like you've made the business case. You mentioned it'll be much more profitable than importing, which means the investors will arrive. Do you need the support of the community first? Like, do you need the labor base in Selkirk?
That's almost as if that was a planted question. Thank you so much.
Well, it's why the other project failed. Right?
No, but we have the city of Selkirk is all over this. We have the plot of land. The land is owned by the city of Selkirk. That's
Okay.
a community that has a very large industrial base history, 100 years of metal recycling and product production. They're ready to go. I know the provinces behind this. Leo can attest to that in the economic development.
Hello.
Oh.
Man, we got all the players here today.
Yeah.
I'm with the city of Selkirk, responsible for economic development planning and land acquisition and sales. We've been working with CGS for a number of years, and absolutely we're in tune with them. We work with them on a regular basis, and we're committed to the project. The community is used to heavy industry, and we welcome the project. We make sure that we can fast track whatever was needed to make it happen, obviously falling within the municipal guidelines that we need to, but bottom line is that we're ecstatic about the idea, and we certainly be supportive, and we're very much hoping to work with the industry as well.
And another really important community is, of course, where the sand deposit is. So it's on First Nations traditional land. It's adjacent to the community of Seymourville and Hollow Water First Nation. We have participation agreements in place with both those communities, and they're eager for the jobs.
Rock and roll.
Yeah. So this is a great segue, which is, we're at this place. Didn't realize we were going to get all the players in the same room today. That is so awesome. So thank you collectively. We're at this place now that we have an expression of interest form that we've created. We'll be sending it out to the industry as a whole so we can start collecting that feedback. I can't can't say strongly enough how important this particular item is to the project. It's kind of like stage one of actually getting this moving. And more importantly, we as the industry get to define what products you want in Canada. Like, that's some of the forum, is it'll kind of ask you, what kind of low-E coatings you're looking for, and what kind of glass you're looking for. It'll help you kind of define what our future market looks like. So it's a non-binding agreement. There isn't going to be anything particular as far as what we're asking from you. Really, it's going to be tonnage, product types, general expectations. But yeah, it starts with industry alignment. And then government participation is going to play a critical role in that, and I think that's kind of a tandem activity. That right now it's like, how do we get the investors and the float glass companies to say, all right, we're in. Like, that's essentially what we're trying to do. We're trying to enable that investment. And then from there, it's project financing and an operator that can put shovels in the ground, and we're off to the races. But all four of these pieces have to be in play. Like, we can't do this without, one of these. So that kind of wraps up the majority of this conversation. There is a QR code here for the form itself. Feel free to jump in. If you're buying float glass, I would love for you to give me some feedback on, what the Canadian market would be willing to buy into and what do you want. So we'll continue to facilitate this. And we're at the end. So any questions from the peoples?
Oh, hang on. Gord, I want to be able to hear you.
What is the, from your slide, you sort of went over it quickly.
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is the tonnage that is produced in a
By
float
one
plant?
float glass plant?
Yeah, the float glass plant that we're contemplating is 600 tons a day, which is very standard worldwide. They're
Okay,
pretty much
it's a lot of
everywhere.
glass.
It's a lot of glass, but here's a stat for you. So the federal government says they want us to build 500,000 new homes a year, which is, what did you say, 250? That's about half again as much as we currently build.
We would have to double the amount of windows into the market, which also means we're doubling the amount of glass in the market. So rough numbers, we kind of need 3.4 float glass plants at 600 tons.
Okay.
So that increase in housing is pretty much the float glass plant.
Yeah.
Okay, so the trucking industry is going to be pretty busy.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Or the rail industry. That is a big conversation. We talked with NSG, and they, I got a lot of interesting feedback from them because they actually ship a lot of their glass by rail. So I think there's some good conversation on how we use our transportation in such a way that would be good for this.
Any other questions?
Well, thank you very much for your time, everybody. I know I get a little over-passionate about this, but it's been a long drive, and I can tell you as a Canadian, this is embarrassing that we don't do this. It's embarrassing that we don't do this in a lot of industries, and it's time. It truly is time to get at it. So, I'm not trying to make a career. Hell, I'm on the cusp of 70 here. This is about doing the right thing in this country and getting going. So that's my passionate end, I guess.
Well, Glenn, I appreciate you being here. And
Thanks, Glenn.
thank you to the government of Manitoba. Selkirk, I had no idea you were in the background, so thank you very much. And then our MP has walked out for a moment, but yeah, I thank you to all the players that are here to kind of have this conversation. I'm hoping in the next 6 months, we'll come back and we'll have a celebration on how we figured out this problem. But yeah, thank you again for your support. Please reach out if you guys need any additional information about this or the expression of interest form you need a link to. More than happy to provide that.
What time is it?
It is 11:30.
Okay, we're a little bit early before lunch. And ironically enough, we're going to come back to our exhibitors, and it's Guardian that we're going to talk to first. How strange.
I know, right? My name is Jeff Shillard. I'm the Regional Architectural Manager for Guardian Glass, covering half of North America. So I can tell you this puts me on the hot spot here. I would love nothing more to be involved with Canadian Premium Sands and have a flow plant here in Canada, but it's not my decision, but I'll be banging the drum very quickly. Just to give you a brief, just sort of a lot of what I've got here is just new technology, new glass that helps to achieve where we're going with the National Building Code with a lower solar heat gain. Bird-friendly glass is a hot topic around the world, if not very specifically in Manitoba and Winnipeg. So I've got new products, new innovations that I can showcase, as well as talk a little bit about that wonderful new technology that everybody's drumming the bum about, is vacuum insulated glass. So feel free to swing by and have a conversation with me. Always happy to share some knowledge.
Hey everyone, Jason Wynn with Folding Sliding Doors out of Kelowna, British Columbia. We've been manufacturing our folding door for over 20 years and recently have really made a great effort to launch across Canada and into the rest of North America, to some chagrin. So this year we're really excited to launch a new multi-slide that for the Vancouver area hit step code 4 in a multi-slide product in triple pane. And as those energy efficiencies and requirements move across the country, that is a product that will grow for us, no doubt. And we're also excited that that same profile will be manufacturing a folding door as well for those same building codes. Great to be here. Thank you.
Who else did we miss there? AGM? Okay.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Martin from JSA Machinery. We specialize in automation, any machines to assemble windows and doors. We do from the commercial to the residential windows, anything from vinyl to aluminum profiles. We also do touch a little bit of the wood parts, door jambs and things like that. We distribute the best top of the brands, European brands. Right now our main supplier would be Rotox for the vinyl industry and Fenestration for the automated paint lines. We specialize in automating plans, but we also do the 1.2 point welders and the smaller stuff for a smaller factory. So any needs that you have, please come talk to us. It's easy today. It's either Martin or Martin. So.
My name is Gordon Sire. I'm with AGM Glass. And we are a Guardian Select fabricator, so whatever Jeff said, we just sort of relate to each other, and we work together with Guardian. But, you know, we've talked about the codes and all the changes that are going to come and take place and what's going to be available. And the one thing is we work with Guardian, we make sure that we are ready with the low-E coatings. When we take a look at the presentations, you know, to go ahead and meet these new codes, what's it going to take? The glass does the work in a lot of cases. And so we work with that. And we work with the FGIA, we work with Fenestration Canada to make sure that we realize what codes are available, what's coming up, and then we relate that to our, I always call them our American partners, although Jeff does come from Vancouver. But what we try to do is just keep up. And we also have some new products that we've put together here called FortiGuard. It's those polycarbonate security glazing that you need, and it's becoming very, very popular because of that reason. It's virtually unbreakable, and it serves the purpose of a storefront that you cannot go ahead and enter, which is a problem, of course, that we have in some major cities in the prairies. And you can come and take a look at that. And we're also, the one thing is we talk about glass, we talk about IG units a lot, but we are also a specialty glass shop with water jet cutting, with sandblasting, with custom items that include signage and other things. Thank you very much, and come by and take a look at our booth.
Thanks, Gordon.
Hello, my name is Darius. I'm with Cure Fabrication. We fabricate material handling equipment, such items as racks, dollies, tilt turntables, spreader bars. Please do come make your rounds if you have time, and I'd love to chat. And we have our catalog of new items and popular items, so come grab yourself something and see you around. Thank you.
I'm Ted. Most of you guys all know me. I'm Ted. I'm representing Window and Door Components. Carmen Lanza, most of you know, he runs Window and Door Components for us. He can't be here because he's working. We primarily warehouse and distribute Radisson hardware. Along with that, we do Nuco paint out of window and door components. We have weather stripping and all kinds of other window parts. So there you go. Hugo, you're up.
Thank you. Hello everyone, Michael and Hugo from Strabitech. We manufacture gasketing solutions and also represent several European hardware manufacturers. We're pleased to introduce today a very innovative solution. It's not as sexy as float glass made in Manitoba, but it's an ADA threshold that comes with drainage, integrated drainage. It performs thanks to a magnetic system that pops up and opens the drainage channel when the door closes. It can be used with in-swing, out-swing, and it adapts to any door profile. So yes, please come to our booth and we'll be happy to talk to you about it. Thank you so much. Have a good show today. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christian from ATFAS. We manufacture sealant, silicone, low expansion foam. ATFAS, it's a Canadian manufacturer. We are based in Montreal and we are across Canada. Also, we are able to customize your color. We can create all the color you need. And come to my booth anyway, I have free sample for you and it's free. Why not?
Good morning. Hi, everybody. Alex Carroll from Concord, representing Mason Door Components, also Epic Components Wrap. We're distributors, stock more inventory than any manufacturer or distributors in the country. Full line of composite jams, brick molds, a whole family of composites. Also wrapped wood. We've got a few innovative products that are really exciting, like you to come by and see. And we've got a flush bolt, spring-loaded flush bolt, and also a adjustable strike plate, and a number of other products. So we got a lot of exciting stuff going on. We sell coast to coast, and please come by. I'd like to talk to you.
Hey, thank you. It's Francesco Cerci from Opera Company. What we do software for windows and door manufacturers. We are a European and Canadian company. We have 1,500 customers worldwide since 1996. So we know a lot of different systems of windows and regulation and materials. In Canada, actually, we have 46 customers. Big size, like 400 people, small companies with less than 50 people. What the software does is cost analysis and quotation, so helps people to create a sales price and analyze costs. And then we have a function to do cutting optimization, shop drawings, till the CNC machine driving. We have an internal CAD CAM able to drive a lot of different machines. After 30 years, you name it, probably we already connected. It's the European side of the machines. We know also the American machines. Basically, our competitors are Excel, AutoCAD. A lot of factories, they use Excel, AutoCAD integrated to do production, estimate things. We provide a full integrated ERP to manage all the company. We're here, see if you would like to see a demonstration of the software, we're here, we're happy to show you. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Jacqueline with Superior Finishes. We are a Canadian family-owned manufacturer of liquid industrial coatings. So we are based here in Winnipeg with an R&D lab. Our technical director did his postdoc at Harvard. We have a team of PhDs working with him. And we customize the coatings around your process, your substrates, your performance requirements. So we're a little bit different than our multinational competitors. We don't do an off-the-shelf solution. We have water-based, solvent-based, for all kinds of substrates, from your PVCs, fiberglass, to aluminum, steel, brass. And yeah, we sell coast to coast in Canada, into the United States, into Mexico. And I'm 4th generation in paint manufacturing, so it's an industry we know well. My siblings and I run the company. We're very hands-on, so if you have any questions, come challenge me and I'll try to answer them. Thank you.
Great.
Hi, I'm Jamie Tilley, for those of you who don't know me, and I work for ScreenCo. We are a Canadian-owned company, and we roll form aluminum, galvanized steel. We can do brass. We fabricate grill bar, window screen bar, cladding, reinforcing channel. I'm introducing a new screen frame today, which is a 1/4 by 1/4. It's a slimline screen frame. So come on by and see it. And that's it.
That's great. I don't know that there's anybody that doesn't know you that's in this industry, so thanks for being here. So thanks to our exhibitors. We're going to stop there. We're a little bit early for lunch, so maybe take a few minutes and visit some of the exhibitors. Lunch is out the doors here. We'll come back about 1 o'clock with Daryl Paul talking about every favorite topic, installation of products and those challenges. So thanks. We'll see you.